So, my first reading is entitled The Diver. The sun had just shown its face when I ambled out on deck. I found Yusuf, the diver, standing alone, shivering on the foredeck. He wore a threadbare sarong that covered him from his waist to his knees, but provided little warmth. His thin arms hugged his undernourished body. He stood looking down at his tender, Nejdi, who squatted by the rail, methodically opening Yusuf's catch with his knife. The diver's shells were always left overnight. They opened easier the next morning. It was a thankless task. Perhaps one shell in 1,000 held a pearl. Yusuf's teeth chattered in the hot morning sun. Portuguese slavers kidnapped Yusuf when he was a child and forced him to dive for pearls. He escaped, but was still diving. Nearing 40 years, he was quite old for a diver, though he looked much older. He spoke good Portuguese, and we became friends. "Good morning, Yusuf." He raised his head and smiled. "Dom Jao, good morning. May Allah's face shine upon you." "And you, my friend, any luck?" I asked, gesturing toward the shells piled beside him. I stood next to him at the rail. "You look troubled." He hugged himself closer. "A dream, nightmare. I can't seem to be rid of it." "I have had such dreams. Sometimes it helps to speak of them." Yusuf nodded but said nothing. He stared at the deck. High in the sky, the gulls wheeled and dived. After some moments, he lifted his head. "My dream is always the same, and lately it comes to me every night. A shadow pursues me. A noise comes with it like a sound inside a shell when you hold it to your ear. It roars like the surf as the shadow comes nearer. I try to flee, but my legs are like lead. I cannot get away. Last night was the worst. When I wake up, I am dripping with sweat. I think the dream is a sign foretelling my fate. If I dive today, the shadow will catch me and I will die." "Then you must not dive." He shrugged his thin shoulders. "I am the lead diver. I cannot refuse to dive, and it would do no good. What is written is written. The other divers would just laugh at me or worse. Please do not speak of this, Dom Jao. The divers might think I am possessed by a jinni and shun me." "Tell Sheikh Arash you are sick." Yusuf put a date in his mouth and chewed slowly. Divers fear cramps. They eat little while they are diving. A few dates, a little coffee. He shook his head. "No, I thank you, my friend, but if it is not today, it will be tomorrow. A man cannot escape Allah's will, inshallah." Just then, Nejdi let out a whoop. Yusuf squatted down and looked at the shell his tender was holding. I too squatted down to look. Embedded in the oyster's soft tissue was a pearl, a big pearl. The diver gingerly picked up the pearl, held it in the sun, and squinted at it. It glowed like the moon, round and white with a blush of pink. I had never seen one so perfect. It was more beautiful than any of the pearls in the sheik's hoard. I clapped Yusuf on the back. "Give you joy of your pearl, Yusuf. How is your luck now, my friend?" The diver grinned. The other divers clustered around, murmuring like a covey of doves. The men moved aside, making way for the nakoda, who was drawn by the excited talk. He squatted down next to Yusuf, took the pearl, hefted it, rolled it around in his hand, and then held it up in the sunlight. "Allah Karim, God is indeed merciful," he said, laughing and patting Yusuf on the back. "You are a lucky man, Yusuf. This is a good one, a very good one." Perhaps now Yusuf could buy his own house, something he had dreamed about. He told me of his landlord who leered at his wife and was always threatening to increase the rent on the tiny hovel where they lived. Yusuf did not dive that day. By custom, when a diver finds an important pearl, he is given the day free. He spent most of the time lolling in the sun. He was much caressed by the sheikh and the nakoda. That night he was invited to eat with the nakoda and his mate. After dinner, they played dice, a game Yusuf dearly loved. I saw him on deck the next morning, kneeling with the other divers around the small fire of camel thorn, kept going all day to warm the divers. He greeted me with joy. Last night the dream did not come, and I woke up today a rich man. I think my luck has changed. Yalla, ha, today I shall dive. Perhaps I will find another pearl. The first 3 dives went well. Yusuf came up with his basket brimming with shell. He wrapped his leg around the weighted drop line, adjusted his nose clip, waved to me and nodded. The tender released the line and the diver splashed into the water. The rock attached to the end of the line towed him rapidly to the bottom. A current was running and Yusuf's lifeline streamed quite far astern. On deck, the day was perfect. The sun shone and small puffy clouds scudded across the sky. The sea was soft azure blue. All I could see was his distorted shape in the water. Then a dark shadow moved swiftly over the shoal. Then another, and there was a frantic tugging on the line. This was the danger signal. The tender, standing at the stern oar, began to point and gesture. Shark, he yelled, and began hauling in Yusuf's lifeline, hand over hand. Crew members on both sides of the boat sprang into action, pulling in their divers. By the time Yusuf was hauled to the surface, there was little left. The sharks had torn off both his legs and had bitten through half of his upper torso. His face was twisted in a grimace, his dark eyes open and sightless. That evening we buried Yusuf the diver. He was wrapped in his sarong and gently laid in the center of the tender. He made a pitifully small bundle. We silently rolled the jalbuk to the beach and carried him a few yards above the tide line into the sand. The wind had died. All that could be heard was the cry of the seagulls. Yusuf was buried in a shallow grave just before the evening prayer. There was no mullah on board. Sheikh Arash said a few words. The sheikh and I sat together in the stern of the skiff as it was rowed back to the Sambuk. It is a sad thing, I said, to break the silence. The sheikh raised his head and regarded me with a smile. He placed his hand on my shoulder. All things, my friend, happen as Allah wills. Surely Allah did not wish the death of this poor man. Sheikh Arash shrugged. You are a Nazarene, my friend, and though you are people of the book, you do not understand the true faith. We Muslims believe all we do is written in God's book and cannot be changed. You do not believe in free will? Is that what you Christians believe? Free will? How can a man have free will if God knows everything? We believe God loves us. Loves you. Allah does not love. Why should he care for such insignificant creatures? For it is written that Muhammad one day took up 2 handfuls of earth and scattered them. So, he said, God empties his hand of his slaves, a portion for paradise and a portion for the blaze. Forgive me, Sheikh, I mean no offense, but that seems a bleak doctrine. Sheikh Arash sat silently for a moment, rubbing his chin. Finally, he nodded his head. Bleak? Yes, perhaps so. Very bleak. But is this not the world as it is? Everywhere you see suffering. Your doctrine doubtless brings you comfort, but look around you, my young friend. Love? Where in this world do you see love? At least his wife and sons will have the money from the sale of his pearl. Sheikh Arash shook his head. No. He lost his money last night playing dice with the Nakoda and the Sarang. The sheikh would inform Yusuf's widow and his 2 young sons of his death when he returned to Bahrain. And the next year, his oldest son would die for Sheikh Arash to pay his father's debt.